Great.
All right, we are live. We got some people in.
I think I'm seeing familiar names, if I'm not mistaken.
I would agree. All right, hello everyone. We will get started here in just a moment. We'll try to get everybody to get into the webinar first, but just prepare yourselves for a lot of information in the next hour.
And a lot of fun information too. I think we had fun putting together this presentation. So
lots of fun, yes.
And Kristina, you can see my screen, correct?
I sure can. All right, Rusty, I think we got everyone in so far, so I think we're good to go. For those that are here with us, I'm going to put a link into the chat. This is a link to all of the links we will be discussing today, so the webinar links. So it's just a Google Doc. You're welcome to copy and save for use later. So you can find that doc in the chat now.
Great. Excellent. And we'll go ahead and kick it off. So you guys are in the webinar from UBTECH Education, Preparing for a Future with AI. So this is our second webinar focusing on AI and teaching AI in the classroom. So as a reminder, we want you guys to connect with us. So please jot down our info at ubtecheducation.com, and make sure to tag us on all your social media platforms at UBTECH EDU. And just always as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and we will share with you via email along with this survey. Great. Excellent. And in case you guys, this is your first time attending one of our webinars, my name is Rusty Nye, so I am the EDU product manager. I specialize in working with teachers and doing implementations of the UBTECH Education products. I always kind of mention this, but that's my LinkedIn image. So that's me actually during a PD session in Kentucky. So I do encourage you guys to find me on LinkedIn and connect so you can stay up to date with what we're doing at UBTECH.
And my name is Kristina Davis. I'm the educational specialist focusing on all of the curriculum. My picture is many haircuts and hair colors ago. So I don't know which one I have on LinkedIn and Twitter, but please find us. We love to connect with you guys and see what you guys are doing in the classroom. So feel free to reach out and chat.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. So our agenda for today, we're going to first remind you guys who we are, because that's always important. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time, and I'm going to take the lead on this, talking about, what is AI and providing some real world examples, specifically that you can utilize when discussing AI to students kind of in a topical way. We're going to, again, focus on that topic of preparing for a future with AI. And we will go through the 5 big ideas with activities, ideas, and a lot of really great resources. We're going to end kind of moving through with some general ideas of how you can get started introducing the classroom, and introduce you guys to our curriculum, which you guys can utilize in a K-12 setting. And lastly, of course, we always end with some Q&A. And this we should note, if you guys have any questions along the way, please drop them into the chat window. We'll try to answer them during the webinar. If not, we'll answer them definitely at the end or along the way. Excellent. Excellent, great. So first, to introduce you guys to who we are as a company, we are a global leader in robotics and AI. So we specialize in creating advanced intelligent robots for consumers, businesses, enterprise, as well as classrooms. We have an overarching company goal to utilize and create robotics to help enhance and enable our daily lives. You'll see a few robots that we feature on this slide, including AddieBot S, which is the robot in the center, which is our newest robots specifically designed to disinfect and sanitize environments utilizing UVC technology. If you're interested in a very efficient way to sanitize classroom environments or other environments, please reach out to us. We are very proud of utilizing this robot, especially in response to the global pandemic and, sanitizing different types of, environments and areas, especially classrooms. But please reach out to us if you're interested in bringing this to your school or your site. And then Kristina, do you want to introduce us as an EDU company?
Sure. So we are a division of our main parent company, UBTECH. So we are here in North America, and we really focus on utilizing UKITs, our robotic sets, in the classroom with STEM curriculum. We've got coding curriculum, we have AI curriculum. So we've got a wide variety of things to try to get coding, computational thinking, design thinking, all those kinds of things into the classroom with your students.
Mm-hmm. And Kristina really is our curriculum wizard. So I've been saying that she should probably change her title to wizard, or,
No one's ever said that. That's fun.
Great. So to kind of, and if you visited our webinar last month, this was kind of the introduction and the topic that we were focusing on. But first, I like to lead, with this question, and we'll, redefine what this means. So how do we, and specifically kind of phrasing it this way, how do we define AI to students? What is the definition that we use? And you'll see I lead with these images on the screen, which I like to showcase, because when you do a Google image search for AI, these are generally the kind of images that pop up. However, is this actual AI, or is this, sci-fi? In my opinion, especially the thinking robot in the center, that is something that is not very, it doesn't really tell you what AI is, and that's more sci-fi than actual AI. To really focus on artificial intelligence and how we're going to define it, we like to use this, pretty open-ended definition. So we use the phrase artificial intelligence as an umbrella term for computers, software, or other, computer-controlled devices like robots to imitate intelligent human behavior. In other words, we can define AI as a way for computers to think in similar ways to humans. So, what does that mean? That basically means that AI, it enables computers to make decisions, to do different tasks that otherwise a human or an intelligent being might do. So the way that we kind of bring this into the classroom is by focusing on these 5 big ideas of AI education. So these were developed by the initiative AI for K-12, which kind of developed this pathway to bring an overarching understanding of AI. So we really went through these last month, so we're not going to focus on these specifically, introducing them right now. So if you want a little bit more broader understanding, please visit our webinar from last month. But these 5 big ideas: perception, representation and reasoning, learning, natural interaction, and societal impact, when kind of put together in a progressional format, really introduce a nicely broad yet deep understanding of AI, how AI actually works, how we interact with AI, and what's really important is that 5th big idea, the impact that AI can have on our societies and our communities. So how can we make these really big ideas relatable to students? So we want to think about this in terms of, how we can get on the level of students. So first we want to think about, where is AI really being used? So I picked out, 5 different industries of which students may have some connection to, that are really utilizing AI. That being transportation, entertainment, a lot of kids are on their iPads, on their devices, the home, manufacturing, and shopping. So of course, these aren't the only 5 industries that are utilizing AI technology, but this is a lot of areas where we can see this technology in play. And some examples, some images that I put on the screen, industrial robotic arms, so manufacturing has really leveraged and utilized aspects of AI. Self-driving technology or different types of AI-enabled devices within, cars and transportation, as well as, streaming devices leverage a lot of technology incorporating AI, smart home devices, etc. And also, e-shopping, explicitly have leveraged and really benefited from some of these technology, some of these aspects of AI technology. So that's kind of the bird's eye view area, if we're looking at AI. But what are some real world examples and how can we really make this applicable to a student? Again, trying to cite some of those big ideas to drive a student's awareness as well as, real understanding of AI. How can we make it interesting to them, in other words? The first example that I love to introduce to students is this idea of autonomous driving, self-driving cars. So the reason why I like to focus on this idea of technology is this is a very flashy example. So this connects to real, so modern technology, yet it still kind of speaks to us in that futuristic, futuristic manner. Meaning that what we're talking about here is something that students may have had personal connection to. At least they know they've basically seen something about self-driving technology. It's something that is going to continue to impact our lives and be embedded in our societies. Yet it still seems like something that kind of fits in that sci-fi realm. This can come directly to the student on the personal level. For example, my 2018 Subaru does have some auto detection devices, auto stopping devices, within its system. So it does leverage some of this self-driving technology, though of course it can't drive itself. I currently don't have a Tesla. I don't know if Kristina does, but I don't have a Tesla. But if you have one, drive it to school, take it into the classroom, have kids come out of the parking lot. And I'm kidding. But the reason why this is also such a great example to bring directly when you're trying to tie in these 5 big ideas is it directly ties into each of these levels kind of point by point. You can touch this into perception by pointing at all the sensors involved in the self-driving technology. You can point it directly to representation and reasoning, how there's different data sets involved and how computers are creating, or how the computers within the self-driving cars are creating representations of the environment and its surroundings. They're also learning from their environment. They're able to take, be more efficient over time, or learning from maps as well and traffic. They're able to change the direction that they're going. They're also able to interact with the human on a much easier level, because of this type of technology. And then lastly, you have that discussion point of, is this a beneficial, thing for our society, or is this ultimately going to lead us to being very careless behind the wheel? So with that being said, this is my premier example, in my opinion, that connects to all those 5 big ideas in a very nice, flashy way. Contrary, another good example that I like to lead with is this idea of recommender systems. So though it may not be as flashy, this is something that students directly get involved with. This is the idea of a computer system being able to recommend you something based on the data that you've been involving within that system. So companies such as Google, Netflix, YouTube, Amazon really rely and leverage this technology in order to function and become very applicable to the individual. So this, in my opinion, is a very relatable example. It really highlights that decision-making process based on data. So this is a great way to tie in the second and the third big ideas of AI education. So directly applicable right to that idea of representation reasoning. as well as how a computer system can learn based on the data that it has access to. A third and final example that I like to highlight here is this idea of natural language processing. So this is something that students have a lot of experience utilizing and leveraging. The idea of Siri, Alexa, different chatbots. These all incorporate AI technology in a very interactive component. So why I also think it's a great example to lead with is this is very testable. This is very practical, and it connects right to how we're utilizing AI on a daily basis. I love this example because this is something that a teacher can leverage in the classroom immediately and show how we're interacting with AI technology and how it's really changing how we interact with our environment and our community and our society. Excellent, great. So now I kind of want to transition the chat a little bit and also show you how you can make those connections by doing by connecting to practical news. So by connecting to AI in the media, if you will. So I pulled out a few different examples that you guys can leverage. You guys can find your own, but I always do recommend that when you're implementing some sort of AI education in the classroom, try to make it very current. And these are 3 different very current examples that I pulled out just to kind of demonstrate how this technology is introduced into our society. The first article, you guys may have seen this, but McDonald's is actually testing fully AI automated drive-throughs. So McDonald's actually acquired an AI software company not too long ago, and they're actually testing out this idea of making restaurants that are fully automated. And the way this actually leverages AI in a really practical way is it does utilize NLP, natural language processing systems, and also recommender systems. So they can basically, through the latest write-up basically about how McDonald's is utilizing this type of technology, the more you go to McDonald's, the more this system would be able to provide you with exactly what you want. So it's going to basically learn from the data that you're inputting into the system, looking at what you might want to eat next. This is also a great place to plug in that societal impact conversation. So this is obviously has the potential to change a large workforce, change a lot of people's basically career or job decisions. And it's a great place to plug in that discussion, especially with an older audience. Another tidbit in terms of news that I found really interesting, and this actually, Kristina sent this to me. This actually, just came out, I believe, but Facebook kind of moving into, rebranding itself as, the metaverse or Meta, is actually ending all of its facial recognition systems. So this is, of course, something that can be hugely impactful or knowledgeable for students who have been utilizing this type of technology. It highlights kind of that specific idea of image recognition and also supports that conversation, that larger societal impact conversation, as well as the impact that AI can have on our daily lives. I thought this was kind of a huge shift actually for this large company. But for the reasons that they're storing different types of data, Facebook also is suggesting that they're going to delete all of the data that they've currently stored. There's also some other really interesting examples of facial recognition systems kind of being in the news. If you look up Flickr as well, there's some interesting articles about Flickr systems, as well as some interesting videos about the use of facial recognition technology within those larger data sets and what that kind of means in terms of the impacts on our societies. And lastly, and this was fun, I kind of went down a rabbit hole researching this specific topic. And there's no one strategy, but the idea of deep fakes threatening our democracy or really impacting or changing our societies. This is a very interesting and important topic as well that all students really should be aware of for many different reasons. This idea is a great example of leveraging powerful deep learning technology. So if you're unfamiliar with deep learning is basically a branch of artificial intelligence that leverages neural network systems to basically interact at a very fast pace or fast speed. So, and the reason why you'll see this image in the lower right-hand corner is that's not actually Tom Cruise. That's, and I was telling Kristina this earlier, if you know what that image is, then you know, because it's hilarious. So if you guys are on TikTok, which, you know, I'm not encouraging you guys to bring TikTok in the classroom at all, but if you're on TikTok, you know there is a whole TikTok feed of Tom Cruise going through his daily life, and there's a ton of videos of Tom Cruise. Those are not Tom Cruise at all. That is advanced deep fake technology of a guy, just a normal guy going through his life, but leveraging this technology to convert him into Tom Cruise within his TikToks. There also have been, you know, different deep fake technology utilized in political dimensions to make, different politicians say things that maybe they actually haven't said. But this is a great way to kind of position and have that dynamic conversation. I say dynamic because there's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons to this type of technology. And what's also very interesting of this is this type of technology, which a lot of times has been made open source, so has basically been, gifted to the public. Pretty much anyone can utilize and leverage this technology now. So I'm not exactly sure if this fake Tom Cruise is a computer software programmer, but he may not be. He may be someone who is just able to utilize this type of technology in a really interesting way. Great. So that is my whole spiel introduction for you guys. So I know, Kristina, you're waiting to chat. So feel free if you guys have any questions about kind of what we're chatting about, how to bring these ideas, these conversations to the classroom. Feel free to drop them in the chat. But I'll kind of switch it over and we'll kind of switch subjects, and I'll throw it over to Kristina.
All right, that was great, Rusty. And I encourage you guys, if you have seen some AI things in the news or know of some more examples, feel free to share them in the chat with us so that everyone can benefit from having those links or those examples to share with their kids as well. I want to preface this a little bit. You're going to get a lot of information. There's going to be 3 slides here per lesson. I don't expect you to jot all this down. Please remember, you're going to get a recording of this webinar. You might want to jot down just the idea of the activity or the general summary so you remember to go back to it later. But if you look at the webinar links that I have linked in the chat, I've put it in there a couple different times, so I hope I hit everybody that's joined us. If you haven't seen that yet, please let me know and I will put it back in the chat. But I want to show you talk to you, I guess, about how that's organized real quick. So we've got our basic webinar links, the emails that Rusty mentioned earlier, our website, the link to AI4K12.org to go with the 5 big ideas. We also have a link in there so you can watch all of our previous recordings of our webinars this year if you have not seen those yet. And then I've broken down the links by lesson. So when it says lesson 1 perception, it's going to give you a link to a background resource that's meant to be teacher specific. It's not meant for students to look at, but the activity resources are meant to be used with students. And those in our presentation here are going to be in blue. So anything you see in blue will tie back. You don't need to click on it, just that you know it's back on that webinar links page. And then at the very end of that document, you guys, it's a 2-page document. We do have a link to where you can find out more information about our curriculum. We're only going to do like 1 short plug on that. So do know that you can find out more information there. We also have a link to our curriculum registration page where you can see free samples of our lessons. And then we also have a link there for our 2020 webinar series was specifically on AI. So we have 6 webinars, I believe there. We did one for each of the big ideas with new activities and ideas, not necessarily the ones we're covering here. So different ones you can do there. And then there's one on the history of AI. So you can get a lot more information about how AI has come to be and different things that you can share with your students. So please make sure you check all that out. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, so we're starting. I'm going to share an activity from our Unit 2. So last webinar, last month, we did an activity from each of our Unit 1 guides. So now we're building up on that for Unit 2. Do know that all of our lessons are written in a 5E format. So if you're not familiar with 5E, we do engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And so each of these activities is just one small chunk of that whole lesson. It's not the entire lesson. It's just going to be one activity from that lesson. So do know that there's so much more in our curriculum outside of just these activities. So lesson 1 is all about perception and how computers perceive the world. This example is going to be from grade 6-8, our Unit 2 again, like I said. So the driving question here is, how do computers gather and send out data? And the description is really they're going to be using bitmaps. They're going to be talking about binary code and how all of that goes with input and output devices. Now, do keep in mind, all of these are Unit 2 activities. So the students have built up a background knowledge in the Unit 1 activities, regardless of where they started. So if they start in grades 9-12, Unit 1 will give them everything they need to know to go to Unit 2. They don't have to do 6-8 to get to 9-12, if that makes sense. So do know any background information they have learned previous to this activity. Some learning goals that the students will go through as they do this lesson are they're going to examine computer perception through binary code and bitmaps. You're going to see that in the next activity. They're also going to talk about binary code with data input and output, as well as redesigning an AI system to improve its ability to perceive the world. So we'll go to the next slide and I'll give you that activity. All right, so the explore activity, so this is from the explore section of the 5 big E's, Look at that, Rusty. I'm like throwing in the 5 big ideas with that. Of the 5 E's. Not everything is big, I promise. Okay, so there is a bitmap resource that is shared in that webinar links Google Doc. So you would give that to students with some background knowledge. The students here have watched a video first. They've learned about binary ahead of time. So there's a little bit more to it than just this activity. But do know that you go with the resource and there is just an outline. It's just a circle, really. And so it's showing the students that black means on and white means off. And it's showing the bits along with the numbers. So it'll be like 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. And it ties back to a line in a graph. Okay. So from there, the students learn which numbers go with which color, and then they're asked to discuss how a computer would perceive an emoji, right? So just a facial expression, little cute emoji. Students love emojis. We're talking about a facial one here because they are already given the circle of the face. So they just have to fill in the inside. What would the eyes, where would the eyes be? Where would the mouth be? Would it be happy, sad, those types of things? So the purpose of this is to show that while a computer can see binary data representing an emotion, can it really understand the emotion? So really, how much of the human understanding does the computer have, or does it just see a sad face and know that it means sad, but it doesn't know what sad means, right? So then point number 3 is when kids are finished with it, you're gonna revisit the question that was asked earlier about what types of things might binary numbers not be able to represent. And if students have adjusted their responses from being asked that earlier, you're gonna ask them what changed and why. So why have they now changed their mind on that? You could also extend this lesson. So this video that's linked in blue down here, bitmaps and binary video, is in that webinar resource. And it really goes in about using larger graph papers, so making really large bitmaps, and then also converting it over to decimal. So based on the level of your kids, you could also make this into a math lesson. And there's going to be an example, I'm guessing, coming up. Rusty, I didn't know you had transitions and all that kind of stuff in here. So you might have to double click on my slides. So there's an example of a bitmap there for you guys, right? So the boxes really is all it is. And here's what the activity resource looks like. So the video where they really go into detail about bitmaps and pixels and individual pixels and all sorts of different colors and things.
It's fun.
It is fun, and it's a super simple activity as long as the kids are understanding the background knowledge of it. But then you can take it really far, right? You could do like huge bitmap images and whatnot. Okay, lesson 2, we're going to bring it down to grades K2. This is unit 2. Representation and reasoning is all about what's used for computers so they can understand the world. They can use it for reasoning. So this could be maps, it could be decision trees, it could be all sorts of different things. So the question here is, how do computers use models like decision trees to make decisions? So do you know students have already learned about decision trees prior to this activity? And in this activity that I'm going to share with you guys, the kids are going to play mystery animal. So if you've never seen that, it's linked in the webinar doc, the links doc, but super fun, super easy. You can use it with Google Chrome. You can use it with a Google Home if you have that little piece of equipment with you at school or at home. And then they're going to work on questioning, which is great in K2. They need to understand questions and what's a good question, but they're really going to work on yes or no questions. So like, does the animal fly? Is it black? Those types of things. So for some of the goals, they're going to learn about and also be able to identify animal attributes. They're going to develop questions using these attributes, like I just explained. And then they're going to do, at the end of this lesson, they're going to make decision tree models and discuss the usefulness of decision trees with computers. Oh, look, the images came up right away this time. Perfect. Okay, so the activity here is to start getting students to think about what is their favorite animal and why. And they're going to share these with their classmates, right? And then you can compile a list of favorite animals. And then you're going to pick one from the list, however you want to decide on that. Pick one and you're going to create a web diagram or a cluster web, whatever you refer to it as, right? So you've got the name of the animal in the center. So if it's a bird, what a type of bird maybe, right, in the center. And then you do the little spokes out. And then that's where you ask students what kind of words describe this bird, right? What are some attributes? So like it has feathers, it flies, it has a beak, it eats worms, all of that stuff. So you're going to fill out one for just one animal. And then you're going to take those attributes and ask students, how can you turn this into a question that you could then ask the mystery animal computer program, right? So if they put that it flies, you can change it into, does it fly? Does it have feathers? Does it eat worms? Those types of things. So working on questions, and because it's K2, you could have the students write out these questions, practice writing, question marks, all those types of things, tie it into ELA. So then you're going to play mystery animal. So you could project this for the class. It's like a 20 questions game. So think of it that way. So the computer's pretending to be the animal. You're trying to figure out which animal it is. And so this is voice recognition, like Rusty talked about, natural language processing. It's all about seeing how the computer understands not only what you're saying, but also then like taking that to the next step. Like if you asked a question that didn't make sense, could it respond in a correct way? Or does it just like keep going down the path it was programmed to go down? But you're going to play that together. And then if you can play another game or two and let students ask the questions here or there, right? But mystery animal is a ton of fun, you guys. And I'll show you an image on the next slide here of what it kind of looks like. So you've got on the left is what the screen will look like when you get to it. And it'll say, I think it says preview activity or something. That's how you can play with it through the Google Chrome. But if you're doing it on your Google Home, then you just say, hey, Google, talk to mystery animal. And then on the right is a page you can get through that page that just kind of gives you a little bit of background on how this was created and a little video. So it's kind of fun. All right. And no questions so far in the chat. Make sure if you've got any questions, anything you want to know by the end, throw them in there now. Rusty needs something to do while I'm talking. Okay. What was that?
I'm not usually this quiet, you know, so.
I know, right? Right. We usually do a lot more back and forth. So this is like our one webinar where we like separated it out. All right, so moving on, lesson 3, but Brad, thank you so much. Love that you're loving it. Lesson 3 is all about learning, so how computers learn, supervised learning. We talk about machine learning, we talk about data, all that kind of stuff. So the driving question here, and again, we're in grade 6, 8, so this is a little higher up, but do know that some of this stuff is covered with the younger grades too. So we don't keep some of this information in our curriculum just for the older grades. We try to expose them as early as possible to where it makes sense. So the driving question here is, how do deep learning and neural networks take machine learning to the next level? So lots of topics there you may or may not know about, and that's okay. But students are going to be introduced to neural networks here through several hands-on activities. So this is their first time learning about neural networks, not their first time learning about machine learning though. So they're going to learn about all the different parts of neural networks and different processes that go through with neural networks. And then they're going to do a visual representation at the end to share their understanding of neural networks. So some of the goals are they're going to compare our human brain, which is a neural network, to an artificial neural network. They're going to model a neural network, and they're going to create a visual model and explain it to others. All right, so this activity it was a lot to condense onto this slide, but I felt like it was an easy enough one that could be replicated if you use the resources I gave you in the Google Doc. And so scrolling down to find that, there we go. So you want to make sure that you watch the video that's linked in there, Machine Learning Living in the Age of AI. And in fact, I didn't give you guys the times. If you start watching about 11, I think I gave you times on the next slide, but I think it's 11 minutes in, and you go to about 13, that's going to show you this activity that we've written out. So it's just taking a string, like a ball of string, yarn, whatever you have, kite string will work, and getting a group of students. You can do large circles, you can do small circles. It kind of depends on how much time you have and how you want to go about this. So watch the video and then you'll be able to decide. But you're going to have a roll or a ball of string, and you're going to have it with one person. So if you're in the circle with the students, you should hold on to it. Don't give it to the students. So hold on to it, and you're going to ask a question, just a common question that kids can say yes or no, like, yes, that applies to me, no, it doesn't. So I put on there, like, I have siblings, right? So if I ask the question, I have siblings, and Rusty says, oh, I have a sibling, I would pass the roll to him holding on to my end of the string, right? And then if somebody else in the circle says, oh yeah, I have siblings, then he would pass it to someone else. The goal here is to not always pass it next to you, because then you're just going to make one big circle of string, but you want to try to get it to go across, right? So you're going to have every student that says, yes, I have siblings. You want to make sure that they get a piece of that string. So we're all holding on to the same string, the ball's being passed around. And you just continue asking questions until at least everyone has one connection. If you have enough time, I mean, make this as detailed of a neural network as you want, but you're going to have them all do that. So they're just holding on to these string connections, and it's this massive web, right, in this circle of students. So you're going to keep doing that as long as you want. You can put any time frame on it. But then you're going to have the students stop, and you're going to ask them, as they're continuing to hold on to their connections, what does the string represent? And as I said, it represents connections, right? And does everyone have the same amount of connections? And the answer is most likely going to be no. And you can ask them to consider why that is or why not. And then you're going to explain to them. In this activity, each of you represented a node, which if you look over at the image there, you've got the layers. So each circle is a node. And this kind of ties back to human neural networks as well. And then you're going to ask them what they think nodes do. And then the activity goes into more discussion on this. This kids learn about how it compares to the brain, whatnot. But if you've never seen a neural network before, there's a very simplified version of a neural network where those inputs come in, right? So like, I have siblings, I have a dog, those types of things. And then you make all the connections, and then you get some sort of output. And it's kind of how our brains work, right? With things coming in and things going out, okay? So that is the example of that activity. And you've got the video is going to be on the next slide here. So the video, you can see kind of the web that's going there, but oh yeah, so you want to watch 11:45 to 13:51 is this activity specifically, but you're welcome to go through and watch the whole thing. There's fascinating stuff in here. They talk about a lot of great AI things. Okay, so there we have about learning. 2 more to go. All right, so lesson 4 is all about natural interaction. So Rusty, I know, had a lot of examples on this because that's an easy way for us to work with and communicate with AI, right? A more natural way, if you will say. So this is where we have the agents that talk to us, use language, they use voice recognition, just different ways that we can talk to a computer. So this example is from grades 3-5, unit 2. And the driving question is, what considerations need to be made when using language and voice recognition systems within AI, right? And this is a lot about, as we get into the older grades, there's a lot about semantics, idioms, language itself, accents, the way you speak. So it ties a lot into ELA, into speech, into presentation. So you can make all those connections as well. But this is all about voice experiments, word association activities, and do they really hear you and understand what you're saying, right? So you've got some goals there, listing words that are associated with the topic, creating music, which is the one I'm going to talk to you about, and then considering the issue that could arise with language and voice recognition, which there are a lot if you've ever talked to your phone or Google Home or any of those. Tried getting directions the other day and my car was like, nope. What were you going to say, Rusty?
Oh, just the robocalls. I constantly am getting the calls from chatbots. And sometimes it's very hard to distinguish if it's a real person or a robocall, because the technology has gotten so good. But it's kind of fun to mess with them, to play and try to basically push those types of models to the limit, to see what they actually can do and what they cannot do. Of course, they're generally limited because they're drive you in one direction to, update your car warranty or something similar. But
right, for sure. Yeah. And I'm trying to think if it's in 6.8 or if it's in 9.12, but in one of the guides, we have the students do that with, I think it's IBM's like Be the Bot or whatever, where it acts like a bank bot and it's just a chat bot. And the activity tells the students, like, try to break it, try to get it off course, because you're right. Like, they're programmed to respond and say certain things based on what you say. And then when you say something that's not in their wheelhouse, they're like, so it's kind of fun to see how they react to that. Okay, so natural interaction, this activity is with MixLab. So again, this is linked in the webinar links Google Doc that we have shared. Just it's fun. This whole lesson is all about music, and Shimon, if you guys have never seen, is a robot that plays music and creates his own music. And so anyways, they learn about that bot, and then they come into this and get to create their own music. So MixLab lets you voice recognition. So you can say like, play those drums or whatever, and then it'll bring up a drum beat. So I'll show you an image of that on the next slide, but really this activity is super easy. You're either going to do this through Chrome, like any of the Google stuff, Chrome or Google Home. You will want to consider spreading students out, using headphones, maybe making it a center activity or a station activity, so you don't have 25 computers going off at the same time. But you're going to have them make their own mix, and it's kind of fun. So you might want to review some musical terms, right? Make sure students understand some basic instruments, or like themes of music or genres like jazz and hip hop, so that they have something to tell the computer. But once you get done doing this and you have the students play theirs, create theirs, you could have them play it for the class. And then there's some questions to have them consider. Did the system hear you correctly each time? If not, what did you do to adjust your question? Or did they not adjust? Did they just go to a new question? Did the system misunderstand any of your requests? Why do you think that happened? Are there things you requested? Kind of like Rusty was saying, are there things you said or requested that the system couldn't do? It didn't understand it, didn't know what you were talking about. So the image on the next slide will show you what the website looks like. So you've got the main page on the right there with, again, the preview it here, which is like what Mystery Animal had. This is from Google. And then the left, and I know this is super hard to see. So on the left side of the left image are words that are in there. So the students could use those. There's keyboard, bass, drums, and guitar. So like you can see the computer's trying to give you ideas at the top. So it says add a jazz bass. But I mean, if they don't know jazz as a word or to say that, they could say add a bass. But it does give you questions or statements to consider saying in case you don't know what to say. But you might want to point out on the left, if they know keyboard, bass, drums, guitar, they'll have somewhere to start. And then as they pick one of these, or as they say to play it, it'll start to color up, and it's really cool. The waves change, and I don't know. It's a fun activity. Super easy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very easy to get started.
Mm-hmm. And then you guys can just like jam out to all of your AI made music. Okay, last one. So lesson 5, societal impact, all about how does AI affect us, right? So we've got this example is from grades 9-12, unit 2. So it's a little higher up. Please take it as you can. If you're not a 9-12 teacher, can you take it down? Can you take it in a different direction? Hopefully the idea itself is enough that you can use. But the question here is, how might we design an inclusive AI system? Oh, and now I just remembered the activity. This is super easy. You can do it with any grade level. Okay, so the description for this whole lesson is using personal experiences as a way to connect to the topic. They're going to explore some big terms, right? Exclusion, if I can talk, inclusion, ethics, and bias. So those are major things with societal impact. I think every grade range, actually, if I'm thinking of the curriculum, covers these 4 terms specifically because they are so important. So overall, they're going to discuss these words, they're going to learn them, they're going to propose solutions to make a more inclusive design. They're going to define ethics, they're going to design inclusive AI systems. So it's really just about how can we improve what's already out there, or how can we create something that's more inclusive.
Mhm.
All right, so this activity, like I said, super easy. You could do this with any grade level. So you're gonna have students pair up. You're gonna give them the prompt of share a time that you felt excluded by another person, a rule, or a system, like anytime you felt like you did not fit in. And that's what those images are there for, like being on the outside of the circle or the opposite color, right, of the little pieces. So you're going to have them not only share a time that happened, but what was their reaction? How did they feel? How did they process it? This would be a great SEL activity as well. And then you're going to ask for volunteers, never force if it's a personal experience, right? You don't want anyone to be embarrassed by it or to have different emotions about it. So you're just going to ask for if there's anyone that can share. It would always help if you as a teacher share first. That is always super helpful. And then you're going to ask students, and you can do this verbally, you can have them write it down. They don't really need to discuss it if they don't feel comfortable, but do other students agree with how that student reacted, right? So you can just have them consider, is that how I would react to that? Would I have reacted a different way? Have them share ideas, have them talk it out if they want. And then what could be done to include that person in that situation? What should have been done so everybody felt good and included? And then you're gonna, as they share, if they share, you're gonna ask them if any of those experiences included technology. Was there any time that you were excluded from something because of technology? So Rusty brought up the autonomous and self-driving vehicles, right? We all know the major issues that we've had with that is that it doesn't recognize all colors of people. So that would be a huge, right, exclusion there. That you could share if students aren't sharing the technology. Or the facial recognition, same thing. There are articles, especially if you're doing this with 912, that are about the criminal system, the criminal justice system, and how it has been used to facial, like, what was that one, Rusty? Do you remember? It was like Congress people or something, and they used facial recognition, and like some of the Congress people were put in as being like criminals or something like that. Like it was
Exactly.
super.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it basically matched some Congress people with I believe it was mugshots or criminal and criminals that were in the system. So it incorrectly was able to incorrectly identified Congress people, labeling them as something that they're very far from. Well, depending, I guess.
That we hope. Yeah.
That's
Right.
not-
Okay. We won't get too political here. Okay. So your example in the Google Doc that you can look back on is an article, and it's called 5 Examples of Biased Artificial Intelligence. I think there's one on the next slide for you. But do know you might want to preview that ahead of time. Remember, it's being used with high school kids. I think it's actually just in as a teacher resource to discuss with. So I don't know that you want to bring up all the examples with your students, but do know that they're out there. So one of them, like we talked about Facebook earlier, one of the 5 examples in that article is Facebook's ads algorithm. And so there was a whole thing in 2019 about that. So you can read up about that and find out more. But just any of these things, right, that like Rusty mentioned, like the recommender systems are different students getting recommended different things because of who they are as opposed to what they select. Like there's a lot of discussion you can have with kids about this, even at a young age. Just exclusion, exclusion, positive, negative, bias. You can bring it into different subject matters outside of AI. You don't have to tie it just to AI, but you do want them to have an understanding of what is bias, ethics, what is something that's good, what's something that's bad, so that they can have intelligent conversations about the AI stuff that you bring up later on, right? So, okay, that was a lot of examples. We do have a question up there, Rusty. Do we want to talk about it now, or do we want to talk about it at Q&A?
Absolutely. We could jump into some cues.
Okay, so the question is, so summing it up, they've not heard of our website before, so I will mention, I think I have it linked on there.
Yeah.
If not, oh, I don't know that I do.
So I did try to jump in and answer a bit while you were chatting.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the one that's still open. So you guys, our website, our UCode website is idena.ubtrobot.com. That is our coding platform where you can do activities. You can do some AI stuff on there. So while we love Teachable Machine and we use that as a free resource as well, you can do a lot of things with our UCode website. So I'll let Rusty chat about that for a moment.
And UCode is a free resource, so browser-based programming environment where we do have a machine learning building platform embedded in our program. So if you are familiar with Teachable Machine or machine learning for kids, so those are both platforms where you can create a machine learning model, and a very simplified machine learning model where you're basically inputting data in the form of an image or so, and then training a model to recognize and distinguish from one image to another. So you can do it doesn't have to be just 2 images. It can be many different images that you put into your system, creating a very large data set. So within UCode, you do have that ability to create your own machine learning models. And where I have to plug in that I think we created a really fabulous piece of software in that it's all encompassing. What I mean by that is you can directly output your machine learning models into your programs directly in UCode. So you can interact with, you can have different sprites, different animations interacting with your machine learning model. You can also have external hardware, so robots that you build interacting also with the machine learning model. Our platform is also something that I know educators probably have in the classroom, but it's also compatible with microbits. So if you guys have microbits lying around, you can also interact with those within a machine learning environment. In addition to a machine learning building platform within our system, we also have a number of different AI blocks currently integrated into the system. So students can actually drag and drop AI data sets to do object recognition, drawing recognition, image separation. So they can create also, like zoom background, like, separate an image from its background, as well as track different movements and recognize different movements. So there's a lot you guys can do within UCode. So I really strongly recommend you guys check it out. So I didn't plan to do a plug like that, but I love UCode, so definitely check it out.
Hey, Rusty. So looking back at the discussion you had with Sandra, and she mentioned that she worked at a school for the deaf. So if anyone else has recommendations on activities she can use with those students, please let us know. But also, you could train then UCode, right, on some sign language, right, and see if he recognizes it could you do with the video, or would you have to do it with images?
So you could do, I guess you could do it both. Yeah. You
Okay.
could do it both. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you could do letters, right, and be like, is this, and then have UCode be like, that's A or that's S, or
exactly. Yeah. Which would be
that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, we got sidetracked there. That was a really interesting thought. Okay.
Yeah, I love that question, Sandra. That seems like some really cool stuff for us to also think about.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing with us. And do you know that if you weren't here for webinar one, Jiminy, last month's webinar where we talked about Unit 1 activities, I would say we had several then that were just hands-on, not as much with the voice and stuff. So you might have some good activities from the last webinar that you can pull as well. All right, Rusty, you want to alternate on this one?
Great. Yeah. And yeah, maybe let me just throw them all up there and then we
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys, we just wanted to give you some ideas for how to get started with AI on your own if you're just wanting to throw it out into your class. So the first thing is just start small. Add in some sort of activity that you can tie back to AI, that you can have a discussion with kids about AI, but it's concepts or topics you already cover. So example, if you're talking about perception and how computers perceive, you can go back to the 5 senses. You can talk about patterns. You can talk about coding and in general and how this connects back to AI. So just make the connections first. It doesn't have to be a full elaborate AI unit to start with.
Yeah. And to expand on that, I always suggest, starting with the basics. So starting with that bare minimum, just, like Kristina mentioned, if you're trying to talk about perception, relate that to the student themselves by talking about their 5 senses. So trying to build very slow. You don't want to, immediately go into a, elaborate text-based course. You want to text-based coding course. You can start with the very general basics and make it very relatable for students to kind of get on board with what we're talking about.
Yep. And so use what you know, use what they know, right? So students, as we know, are great consumers of technology at a very young age now. And they most likely use AI in their daily lives without thinking about it. So bring up stuff they already know about and make those connections before you start building on stuff that's new.
Mm-hmm. And then definitely have fun. So there are, and that's kind of what one of the angles I tried to take in the beginning of this presentation, I'm making these real world connections. There is a lot of really interesting and fun stuff related to AI out there. So trying to make it, making that bridge outside of, a textbook course or something similar, but making it really fun will go a long way with getting students excited about the topic.
Absolutely. And if you're looking at all this stuff and you're just really overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, we have a full curriculum. So we have a full K-12 curriculum. It's all broken down into grade bands. So K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. We've got 2 units for each grade band. And like I said, with the activities today, you can break them down, take them younger. You can build those up too and use them throughout the grade levels. So we've got that in case you're interested.
Yeah, great. Why not,
I know, it was like the whole last year of my life. So if you'd like to know what I did, purchase our curriculum, you can see it all. Okay. Real quick, want to know more about our curriculum? Rusty, I think you're gonna have to click again. I think there's some links. Yes. There we go. So you can check out, if you just go to our website, ubtecheducation.com, which is linked on the webinars page, and then you can just go to curriculum, you can go to products as well, and you can find our AI foundations, you can learn more about them. Or if you guys want to see a sample, if you go to our page and you see in the top right corner where it's highlighted, where it says log and register, you can register for a free account with us. It just gives you access to samples of all of our stuff. So that's really cool. And then you have a resource library that has some great stuff in there as well. So you can download samples, check it out. Then you can reach out to Rusty or I and be like, hey, I want to know more. And if you don't want to know more, that's totally cool as well. Just know, oh, I don't think we said this, but do know our AI foundations, separate from our STEM curriculum, does not require any of our computers, robotics, any tech stuff. It's all free resources. It's all things you can get online for free, or videos, websites, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Hands-on materials are all stuff you'll have in the classroom, paper, crayons, markers, that type of stuff. So we don't have anything extra with it. It's just the activities.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great. So,
all right.
Any cues? Oh, Sandra's asking for us to list our 5 E's again. So
yes, and if you download a sample of our curriculum, you'll see it as well. But we use, and I know if you type in the 5 E's, you Google it, there's different ways you can do this. We do engage to start with. We do explore. So we always start with something that's going to get the kids thinking about the topic and engage. Then we want them to explore that topic. So they get to further explore either on their own with a hands-on activity through research. It's not, we're not like a sit and get company. So it's not a lot of teacher presentation for the most part. Just know that ahead of time. The teacher is more of a facilitator. So after they explore, then we have them explain, what do you know already about the topic? What did you learn? How are we making these connections, right? And then we have them elaborate on what they know and go further. So including some new stuff as well. And then we evaluate at the end. So those are our 5 E's: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. Okay. All right, any other questions? Thank you, Brad, for sharing. Brad has shared an article in there on Amazon's face recognition falsely matched 28 people. So that's fantastic.
Open that. I saved it, Brad. So I'm gonna.
So we'll actually know what we're talking about in the next one. Okay, you guys, we're gonna have more webinars coming in 2022. We're taking December off because, like all of you, December is just a crazy, super fast month, right? It goes by so quick. You guys have other things to do. Happy holidays now, because we won't see you until the new year. But we will start up again next year. It might not be January. You might see us later on, maybe February or March, but we will be back. And in the meantime, you can go see all of our recordings from this year. You can also go see our 2020 webinars. So you'll see us again. Just know we'll be here.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, it's been a really fun year of webinars. So I've had a lot of fun chatting with my colleague, Kristina. So we really look forward to bringing you more really engaging content moving into the new year. So
hey, and if you have ideas, Rusty will go to the next slide. If you have ideas, you guys, you're going to get a survey link in your email tomorrow. So you're going to get a recording of this webinar. You are also going to get a survey link. If you could please respond in that survey with topics you want us to cover next year. We haven't started our planning yet because we are a little, we kind of procrastinate just a little bit, but we'll start planning. So if there are topics you want us to cover, other things you want us to talk about, please let us know in that survey. We'd love to get your ideas so that we can start planning for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great plug. We want to make these as relevant to you, our audience, as possible. So if there's stuff you guys want us to cover, just let us know. We definitely want to make them as engaging and as relevant to what you're trying to learn. So let us know.
Awesome. And everybody's chatting in there. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for coming. Alan Kirby, great to have you with us. There were so many familiar faces.
Yeah, I love that. I love seeing that. That's great. Excellent. Great. Well, thanks everyone. We appreciate it. And Kristina might be frozen. Is that right? Well, great. Well, I'll go ahead and sign off then. So everyone have a great rest of your day and rest of your week, and looking forward to seeing you guys soon.